Good morning. With the daffodils and magnolias, we're invited at this time of year to imagine certainly coming out of winter and try to imagine the year ahead of us. When I, as a professional, both in the classroom as an educator and now working with architects and technology visionaries, school leaders and kids of all sizes, try to imagine the future of their experience. We're asked to think about birth, and we're asked to think about imagination, and we're asked to wonder about that word future in very, very tangible ways. So with the next 15 minutes, I'd like to share with you a version of what it looks like at that intersection of classroom and learner, and that question about what do we mean by the future. I want to take us back to a different spring in 1984. My mother offered me an invitation that at the time was intriguing, but to be honest, it wasn't one that I wanted to accept. My mother offered me the following. Instead of spending the summer hanging out with your friends, I'm going to send you to camp, which by itself was not problematic. She made it a little bit more interesting and said, I'll pay you $50 a week if you'll go to camp. And to a scrawny 8th grader, soon to be 9th grader, who collected baseball cards and really didn't have many options growing up in the center of Maine with what to do with money, that was not a bad deal. But there was a catch. It wasn't an invitation so much as a non-negotiable recommendation, as moms are very well inclined to do. And she said, I would like you to spend the summer at a camp in the center of Maine that allows young children who are not often allowed to be children a chance to play. And at that point in time, I was still a child myself, and I had never spent any time with anybody that was disabled. I had never spent more than a couple of minutes in public with anybody that was profoundly challenged by physical obstacles, emotional obstacles, and often much richer layers of obstacle. And at 13, going into 14, the idea that I was going to spend my summer at a camp for handicapped children just didn't land. I didn't get it. To my mother's credit, she was able to get me to that camp that first day and to suggest that something extraordinary would take place. So nearly 30 years later, I think about these kids who welcomed a kid who for some reason was allowed to be a counselor at the age of 14, and there was an extraordinary risk that a camp of any variety would take to allow a child to be responsible, to allow a child to make decisions, to allow a child to care deeply for other children. And also, many of these kids were actually older than me. Some of these campers were 16, 17, 19 years old, and as a 14-year-old, I was responsible to take care of. In the middle of this picture is a young man named Uriah, and if you can see a little piece of orange hair, this little boy that's tucked in behind this girl with kind of a blue cover with a blue towel. His name was Uriah. And in the summer of 1984, Uriah was 9 years old, and I had the privilege of spending that summer and the next 2 summers with Uriah. He passed away a couple of summers later. His body simply couldn't continue. Uriah, though, that summer at the age of 9, and he was challenged by a number of things. Seizures. He was challenged by the inability to speak in full sentences. He would gasp and throw his body into language because any word he could get out was extraordinary, and it took extraordinary effort to do that. He was also riddled by physical challenges. He had these 2 crutches. He had braces that went from the knee down, and he was covered in scabs, and those scabs came from one place. Every time he wanted to play, every time he wanted to be a child, he had to confront gravity. He had to confront pavement. This is a young boy that when he wanted to play kickball, bleeding was the minimum level of currency that he had to hand over. And as a 14-year-old who was scared, humbled, and intimidated by being there, let alone being asked to have responsibility in that situation, I spent that summer and the following 2 summers watching Uriah and an extraordinary group of young people and also the counselors and folks who believed in them. I watched them encounter the world in a way that I had never appreciated, and I've spent nearly the last 30 years trying to honor. They knew obstacle, but that was not the point of their story. What they knew is that life was happening in real time, and there was an opportunity to play. There was an opportunity to be extraordinary. And for those 3 summers, I thought it was just about ensuring that those kids made it to arts and crafts, made it to the bunk, made sure that their medication was delivered on time. What I've learned over nearly the last 3 years is that those kids were going after something that I've spent the remainder, or I guess the years since, trying to honor in a different way. As an educator, as a school designer, as somebody that thinks about the future of education. That boy Uriah, he had one goal a day, and it was down a long concrete path. And that concrete path was not good to Uriah, because if he fell, he hurt. Uriah would get back up, and he would sort of, in this almost drunken, if you can imagine, this kind of drunken puppet, trying to make it, except for this mad pirate grin on his face. Pure mischief in Uriah's eyes. He had one goal, and it was a lake. And for 30 minutes a day, Uriah was allowed to be a dolphin. For 30 minutes a day, for 6 weeks of summer, Uriah was allowed to swim with grace and without limit. And I've never forgotten that. So, for the remainder of the talk, I want to share with you a different vision. And Uriah will be the patron saint, but it won't be about kids of that particular persuasion necessarily. I want to imagine that I give you the following question. If you could design a school, and I mean quite literally, this is not metaphor. If you could design a school, we won't worry about budget at this moment. We won't worry about politics. We won't worry about where those kids will go next once they leave. But if you could pick one word, and you can think of the old cowboy in the movie City Slickers, who said to Billy Crystal, it's just one thing. You could think of one thing, and you could scribble out on this blackboard. One phrase, one word, that would be the driving spirit of the school that you would design. What would it be? And if we had time, I would love to take that question seriously and allow us to really engage. I'm going to share with you what, for me, that word has become. It's a little bit counter and perhaps even cheeky in this day and age to suggest that failure may be the one piece of the conversation that we are foolishly letting go of. This room is full of innovators, entrepreneurs, visionaries, folks who have to push the boundary constantly, and yet our educational system, for better or for worse, is doing everything in its power to value engineer this word out. And I can't imagine any city, any organization, any creative work for salt that doesn't have a mad love affair with this word. So I wonder what it looks like when we really consider the fact that we fail, therefore we are human, that our mistakes define our abilities. They aren't what we should run from. So let's put this in more practical terms over the next couple of minutes. I want you to imagine that you're asked to design a school, and I was. The state of Ohio came to me and said, if we gave you this space in a convention hall, and this is certainly not a loving, human, scaled space, and you could design a school, would you? Can you design in a conference full of educators and technology experts, the classroom of the future? If we gave you a space within a space, could you design the classroom of the future? And I said yes, but if it's architectural, technological, and requires money, no. Meaning, if the classroom of the future necessitates perfect design, which I work with architects all the time, so that would have been an easy direction. If it involves perfect technology, and it requires an investment that a teacher in the 4th grade can't pull the trigger on next Monday, then no. So I tried to reimagine the question. And this will go very, very quickly, and it's meant more to be a question as opposed to an answer. But this is how we wrestled with it. I knew that we needed a spirit. We needed an attitude more than we even needed a place. I knew that we needed to believe that creativity was the point not the answer key. I knew that we needed an educational process, and we used design as a way to solve problems. And I knew we needed to honor kids not as students, but as creators. I knew that we had to deal with the space we were given. And I knew that my kids would live for 3 straight days from 7 in the morning until 7 at night in this space, in that very inhumane exhibit hall. And that the entire world would watch everything they do in real time. I knew that just putting them in a room full of laptops was not going to be the classroom of the future. So we worked with graffiti artists. We worked with companies that design furniture where kids can move and fidget. I knew that we would have Promethean 3D or 3D tables or Promethean smartboards, but I also knew that Post-it notes were just as valuable. I knew that it wasn't about if the kids were smart, it's if they could handle failure. And we needed kids from a very, very diverse cross-section, not just of economics and race and location, but in terms of thinking. We needed adults who weren't just teachers and just technologists. We needed folks who crossed disciplines. We needed designers who looked at everything as a design problem that would improve people's lives. What we saw over time was the following. The kids, by using design as a way to see the world, and not in terms of 21st century education, which means school plus computers for so many people. If it's just schools plus computers, we really need a timeout. We need something richer and deeper. And we believe that design was a way forward, not just to make the space interesting, but for the kids to imagine the world as a design problem. What we became interested in was the fact that they saw everything as a question, not what the answer would be. That they started to live inside a world of ideas. That they started not to take notes in notebooks, to look studious, but they started to explode with ideas. Whether it was a student or a teacher, it was impossible to tell. If you look at this picture over and over again, I said which one was the student, which was the teacher. But more importantly, every idea was valuable, not just the one that they were defending. To live in a culture where your idea is not the point, but your idea is a gift to your team, to your community, because our best ideas are a matter of momentum. When you literally live inside a world of ideas, the game changes in school. I don't mean the pretty bulletin boards with the borders. I don't mean the notebooks that look perfect for the quiz. I mean an explosion of ideas. When tables begin to look like this, and you see a 17-year-old who's not being graded, being productive, not taking a break for 5, 8, 12 hours at a stretch, and you say that this table isn't effective, and you get out of their way and stop asking them to simply be little producers, but allow them to be productive. When you create spaces where people aren't even sure if they're allowed to come in, but they can't stop watching. When these kids, in spite of all these adults, are wondering, what are you doing? Can you show me? And the kids still just keep producing. We think kids distract themselves, and I wonder if we ever give them a chance to be productive. What we learned along the way was that what looks to be a distraction often is extraordinary and beautiful. This kid was doodling and bringing Chuck Close, one of the great artists of the 20th century, to bear in the upper right-hand corner, writing edge users, because he had worked with a futurist, one of the leading futurists in the country, and was trying to express an idea, this idea of taking ideas and making them three-dimensional, making them visual. Exactly what she's doing right there. When the kids started to ask different kinds of questions, is learning different when you're comfortable? How do I take an interesting what about and turn it into something that someone can hold and flip around? Is this a campus? Is this a social media network? The point was the kids learned how to do more than just construct a thesis statement. And even their best ideas, they actually bought the website. They went global in 3 days and got kids around the world to contribute content, but they knew their idea as a prototype was only as good as it inspiring somebody else to come to the next idea. One of my favorite moments was this moment when they hacked the very furniture they were given. The German furniture company who flew in a tremendous amount of furniture from Germany, beautiful, wonderful furniture, the kind of stuff that Steelcase and Herman Miller, etc. does that we love. They saw this, they took a picture of it, sent it by cell phone to their factory in Germany and said, we need tables that become whiteboards now, go. And what was beautiful about that is these kids didn't even realize that was the prototype they should have designed, because to them that wasn't what they were passionate about. It was just how they could have more wall. Along the way, the kids started to speak in ways that were extraordinary. I have been a teacher for over 15 years, and I've never seen a kid who said, "I failed, dude, I really failed," with a smile. These kids started saying, "We failed well," because they understand the world of design. When you prototype, it isn't about the end, it's about moving towards something extraordinary that improves the world around us. When the kids had to eventually speak to a jury, traditionally this would be about defending their expertise, and about a jury saying, no matter how well these adults say it, "Yeah, but." And you think about the power of that phrase in any school, in any organization, in any marriage. "Yeah, but." And these kids were extraordinary because they didn't say to the judges, "Please give us permission." Instead, they said, "Here is where we're going." And when the jury responded, it wasn't, "Are you right or wrong?" It's, "If I were to invest in that, where would we go?" The judges acted as venture capitalists, not as experts. They acted in partnership, not in authority. And when the kids were done, it wasn't even about the jury. It was about the fact that they were going there either way. My wish, in the final closing seconds, on some level, I wish I could go back in time and take Uriah from a world where he gets 30 minutes a day for 6 weeks a year, and he gets to be graceful. I wish we could have made it 23 and a half hours. And we failed him because we didn't believe that that water was his passion. But on a more important level, in terms of design, I cannot say that the classroom design is the point. I cannot say that even design is the point. But what I can say, and I believe is true with the design space, is that we tap into what somebody is deeply passionate about, and we serve that. There is no limit to what we can craft. And in a school setting, if we give ourselves permission, and more importantly, get out of the way of our kids on occasion based on their passion, their curiosity, being productive is not the point. On some level, we've got to be willing to fail much, much better. I thank you for your time.